Okay, hello, I am Mike Russell from musicradiocreative.com, and all this week on my channel as I broadcast live, this is the final week I'm live, and then we got a week of pre-records next week because I'm at Social Media Marketing World 2018 in San Diego. More info at mrc.fm/SMMW. But yeah, we're going to have a bit of a live podcast week this week, so answering questions about podcast production, podcast editing, and basically upping the sound of your podcast as best as I'm able to help you. Using, of course, the one and only Adobe Audition behind my back over there that we're going to hop into. So what I thought I'd show you in this sort of live stream is podcast production best practices. Some of the things you can do to set yourself up to really produce a great podcast and make it sound great, all that cool stuff that you can do. So first of all, when you're in Adobe Audition CC, there is nothing better than having your own template. So, new multi-track session, and I do happen to have one. It's called Pro Podcast Presets. If you'd like to grab these for yourself, by the way, you can grab them at mrc.fm/ppp. That's mrc.fm/ppp. So we'll start the podcast multi-track session. Here it is. I'll explain to you how I've got this set up so I can do some great podcast production, no matter what audio is flung at me. Whether it comes from a beautiful TLM 103 microphone, the glorious, hang on, let me give you a quick look at this, the glorious Heil PR40 microphone, which is always a wonderful thing to have in the studio. Really, really like that. Or whether you're using, let me just see if I can show that to you, rather old one of this, but two condenser microphones on it, a Roland R-05. By the way, for podcast production, if you're on the move or if you're recording at home, I highly recommend... Whoa! I just threw it across the studio. That was good, wasn't it? Again, the beauty of doing live video. Don't worry, I've recovered it. Does it still work? Let's try and switch it on. Yeah, it does still work. Yeah, thank goodness for that. So yeah, either the Roland R-05 for recording backup audio, you just put an SD card inside it and away you go. This is a great way in case your computer fails of keeping audio, especially if you're talking to a really cool guest and you don't want to risk losing the audio. So brilliant device to have, but you can get Zoom products as well. There's the Zoom H4, the Zoom H2, whatever takes your fancy. And then I just plug this into a line in here. Let me see if I can show you that. A line in jack. That actually goes straight out of my mixing desk into the recorder there, which is just a fantastic device to have. So that's the first thing. Get yourself one of those. The second thing, though, is having different tracks set up and making sure the right effects are there to make your audio sound good. So I'm just going to go through Podcast Host, and if I've got time, I might look at the talk over music as well and give you a quick example. So with Podcast Host, I have got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 effects running at the same time, and adaptive noise reduction as well if needed. But I don't usually run that unless I have to, unless I've got really bad quality audio, and that can sort of help. And you've seen in previous videos I've done on this channel that actually it might make sense to do your noise reduction in the waveform view rather than live and on the fly in the multi-track. But that's a different video that I've done before. Just search adaptive noise reduction on my channel. So speech volume leveler. This is a good thing to have in your rack. And this will bring audio, particularly if you have it on multiple tracks, down to one target volume level. I'm heading for -20 dB RMS, and the leveling amount is 100%. Now, this is a common thing that I get with Pro Podcast Presets users. Many feedback to me and say, love the Pro Podcast presets you've designed, Mike, but sometimes when I have really kind of poor quality audio, it's got a hiss or something in the background, it kind of sucks up that hiss. Like that, and you really hear the hiss. So a way to stop the leveling amount being so much is by just dragging this down. Often I advise going to 50%, but if it's really bad audio, further down. But if you've got top quality audio, you shouldn't need to do that, and that will give you the full leveling amount on your audio, make it sound good. Deesser, again, depending on how poor the quality of the audio is, you can switch this on and off. If it's recorded on a really good mic that's not very sibilant, you might want to disable or not use the Deesser at all. But for me, I have it set in a broad range of 4K to just below No, just over 6K. So 4K to 6K, but it might vary. If you're if you're a female host, you might want to ramp that up and make that sort of up here, somewhere up there, 6K to 9K, something like that. But the Deesser, obviously, I've shown you, demonstrated in different videos, how you can isolate frequencies and get rid of sibilants. Scientific filter is rolling off below 100 hertz. You should do this on pretty much every podcast. It's bass rumble. It's not in the human voice, so really we don't need anything below 100 hertz in a podcast, certainly a speech podcast. If it's a music podcast, again, you might want to keep some of that in to keep the dynamic range of the music, the audio playing there. Dynamics processing, very soft knee kind of compressor rolling on there, which is pretty simple. You can roll more compression on, but podcasting, we're about keeping it real, so not too much there. And the dynamics processing, again, it's doing a soft kind of decrease in the low end, little decrease in the high end there, and it's picking out some frequencies in the voice. Let me show you how this would work on the fly by just arming and recording into a track here. Hello, this is Mike Russell, and you are listening to the Music Radio Creative Podcast, Episode 1. And then I'm just going to go in here. This is another thing you can do, and you should always really do, if you are working with audio that's been sent to you, and it's really, really quiet. Favorites, normalized to minus 0.1 dB, gives you a nice big waveform, and it helps you to edit and work in the multi-track. Let's switch off that recording now, otherwise I'm going to feed back on myself. Now, a good way... Hello, this is Mike Russell, and hear the improvement already. Switch that off. Hello, this is Mike Russell, and you are listening, and then on. And the best way to find out frequencies that are good and bad is to kind of notch up with this and then move the Q up a bit so you can kind of notch around and find good frequencies or bad frequencies and either enhance or eliminate them. Hello, this is Mike Russell, and you are listening to the Music Radio Creative Podcast, Episode 1. So hear that kind of whooshy sound as I'm sort of going up and down there with my parametric equalizer in the effects rack here. Let's bring it back up. You could use this. Now, this is a pretty good quality recording, but sometimes you get like echo or reverb or terrible sounds, humming sounds, bass hum sounds. You can use this as a kind of like periscope above the water to isolate that frequency. Listening to the Music Radio Creative Podcast, Episode 1. So that might be, if I was picky, that might be a frequency that I want to eliminate. Listening to the Music Radio Creative Podcast, Episode 1. So you can easily notch out audio just like that. So hopefully you've gained a little bit already in this episode. Always use a portable Roland recorder or Zoom recorder to back up your audio. Set up your speech volume leveler. Deesser scientific filter to roll off below 100 hertz. Dynamics processing will give a nice little even out to your audio. And the parametric EQ is just brilliant for isolating frequencies. Finally, I'm going to show you ducking talking music, and I'm going to use some hip-hop music here, and you'll hear it in action here. Very nice indeed. And then finally, when I come in around here, you should hear the music auto-duck. Let's see what's happening. Hello, this is Mike Russell, and you are listening to the Music Radio Creative Podcast, Episode 1. Now, and let's put some fade outs and fade ins, always good to have when podcast producing. If I didn't have this dynamics effect on, it wouldn't duck the music. Hello, this is Mike Russell, and you are listening to the music. So the music is competing. Hello, this is Mike Russell, and you are listening. And there it's ducking the music using a process called sidechaining. Got it set up here, stereo sidechain. Oh, don't want to disable it. There it is. And you can obviously go in and set up your sidechain inputs and outputs. A bit beyond the scope of this particular video because this is just podcast production best practices. But sidechaining, covered it in detail on my channel over at youtube.com/musicradiocreative. Just open the search bar and search for sidechaining. If that tickles your fancy, you want to find out how to set up sidechains and auto-duck music to your heart's content. Now, if you're looking to outsource your podcast audio production, I'm Mike Russell from musicradiocreative.com, and we can help you with that here at Music Radio Creative. Our team are here to help. We've got a team of professional radio-trained producers, so they really know what to listen for when editing podcasts and making them sound great. Plus, really good thing is with Music Radio Creative, we offer you one podcast producer per show. So not per episode, but per show. So if you've got a show that you want to have a podcast producer working on, we assign you one single podcast producer to work with you through that process. It's a really simple process. And actually, I'm hoping to talk tomorrow on the live stream what going rates are for podcast production. So if you're interested in that, then make sure you tune in the same time tomorrow night. Well, night in the UK. It could be morning or afternoon in the US, or early morning in Australia, unfortunately. But make sure you catch tomorrow's live stream where I talk about the going rate for podcast production. So if you want someone to really get to know your style and help you to sound great and just take all this podcast producing off your hands, go to musicradiocreative.com/podcast-production. That's musicradiocreative.com/podcast-production, and we would love to work with you.